Chapter 1. America's New Sun, Tiger Woods and America's Multiculturalism. By C. L. Cole and David L. Andrews. Oprah Winfrey: well, you don't have to know what a birdie or bogey is to love my guest today. You don't need to understand par. You don't even have to like golf, because Tiger Woods transcends golf. He is magical and he's mesmerizing. He's just what our world needs right now, don't you think? Audience, in unison. Yeah. Oprah Winfrey, who? I call him America's son. Typical of her inspiring insights that resonate with mainstream sensibilities and which have made her the most influential woman in American entertainment today, Oprah Winfrey's declaration extends the euphoric public consensus evidently reached over Tiger Woods. The show was taped soon after Woods' victory at the 1997 U.S. Masters. Winfrey's proclamation enlists elements embedded in popular discourses, particularly elements encoded through and aligned with race, family, and nation, that facilitated and framed Woods' march into the American consciousness. Invoking the national familial bond, Winfrey identifies Woods as an antidote to the anxieties weighing down America, the world, at the end century. Although the anxieties remain unnamed, Woods enters a context defined by the regular fanning of apprehensions about and celebrations of America's multicultural racial future, racially coded celebrations that deny social problems and promote the idea that America has achieved its multicultural ideal. At the same time, racially thematized crises related to sexuality, family, crime, welfare, and moral depravity normalize the policing and punishment of already vulnerable populations. This dynamic is encoded and enacted in the rhetoric of color blindness that guides, for example, the argument that America no longer needs race-conscious affirmative action programs. Ironically, contemporary debates about the role of race and ethnicity in public policy declare the importance of not being classified by race, while panics regularly surface over the ever-impending demotion of the white population from the statistical majority. Woods, an appointed symbol of national multiracial hybridity, is an element in the stabilizing narrative of continuity that furnishes Oprah's American audience with a reassuring sense of self. After all, the virtuous Woods was born from a contemporary America defined by affirmations of color blindness and the close association of, even slippage between, America and the world. The universalism invoked by Winfrey's extended valorization of America's new sun directs attention to an imagined international national future present. In that imagination and in an era of global restructuring, America has assigned itself a privileged and superior moral position. We contend that Winfrey's rhetorical question and directive, "He's just what our world needs right now, don't you think?" references dominant ways of thinking about nation, race, and progress that govern American popular cultural politics. Thus, we seek to investigate how the narrative around Woods participates in normalizing and routinizing these ways of thinking. In particular, we consider the relations among a prominent reactionary sensibility and politics, as they are regularly expressed in the related logics of anti-affirmative action and white victim masculinity, and the facilitation of a multinational, upwardly mobile, sporting figure as the prototypical future-present American. In order to begin to make sense of the duplicitous optimism invested in the national icon Tiger Woods, we build on Lauren Berlant's analysis of the state of American citizenship in the last decades of the 20th century. Facing America's future. Berlant argues that the contemporary formation of American citizenship pivots around heteronormativity, personal acts, and a national intimacy generated through the mass media. Within this conjuncture, a new sexual politics, expressed and authorized most virulently through the hyper-mythologized American family, now regularly trades places with and suppresses the experience of economic and political injustice. Moreover, the mass media, with the exception of a slew of populist products aligned with the new moral politics, replaces and demonizes any semblance of public debate and activism. Central to Berlant's explanation of the new citizenship is the invention and promotion of a series of new faces of America, computer-generated, racially hybridized, feminine representations of a future, post-white American populace. Such simulations have appeared on the covers of Time and Mirabella and have even shaped the latest rendition of the Betty Crocker brand embodiment. As Berlant depicts it, these cybergenetic visions of the future, multiracial American citizenry are constituted by an amalgam of racially hybridized phenotypes, skin tone, facial structure, hair, etc. Such simulations, Berlant argues, are imagined to be civic and commercial solutions to the problems of immigration, multiculturalism, sexuality, gender, and transnational identity that haunt the U.S. in the present tense. Like Berlant, we contend that despite their progressive appearance, such representations of America's racial future are aligned with a regressive racial politics. This racial politics is embedded in a national familial politics that, by our view, has accompanied and is inseparable from the crisis of white masculinity. In its most recent version, a prominent masculinity is figured around the popular belief that white men, the future minority, are the new persecuted majority. Moreover, in post-civil rights America, minuscule advances made by women and people of color are imagined as the impediments to white men's access to the means of making their own destinies. In other words, women and people of color are perceived as the restraints on white men's realization of the American way of life. In the white male victim imaginary, the American dream itself has been extinguished. For white men, the campaign to strengthen white masculine privilege routinely escalates the rhetoric of family values. Enter Eldrick Tiger Woods, characterized as a breath of fresh air. Indeed, Woods' cultural significance is inseparable from the figures, explicit and implicit, over and against which he is defined. Woods, a critic for Business Week explains, is a breath of fresh air for an American public tired of trash-talking, spit-hurling, head-butting sports millionaires. Although race is not explicitly mentioned, Stochill's reference is clearly to African American professional basketball players who are routinely depicted in the popular media as selfish, insufferable, and morally reprehensible. Woods's cultural significance is further implicated in the politics of post-national familial multiculturalism and mediated intimacy that govern ways of thinking about America's future citizenry. But times are changing. Interracial marriage and reproduction are on the upswing, and a new generation of post-1960s multiracial children is demanding recognition, not in the margins of society but as a mainstream of their own. To get a glimpse of its future, look at Eldrick Tiger Woods, the golf prodigy. His mother, from Thailand, is half Thai, a quarter Chinese, and a quarter white. His father is half black, a quarter Chinese and a quarter American Indian. It is our contention that Tiger Woods is an extraordinary exemplar of the new American logic. That is, Woods is the masculine extension of the already familiar hybridized American, feminine, face invested in white American culture. As such, he is the latest, but perhaps the first masculinized, rendition of the American super icon, a commercial emblem who makes visible and concrete late-modern America's narrative of itself as a post-historical nation of immigrants. Woods thus embodies the imagined ideal of being and becoming American which, in its contemporary form, requires proper familial affiliations and becoming the global American. As a figure embedded in and who renders multiple national narratives comprehensible, it is no wonder Woods appears to be a universally celebrated example of the America's son, the new commercial stereotype advertising the future of national culture. In this chapter, our preliminary discussion of the unfolding Tiger Woods phenomenon, we seek to clarify some of the dynamics governing the national euphoria inscribed on Woods. Here, we offer a critical contextual-based reading of the promotional discourses, primarily, but not exclusively, those emanating from Nike Incorporated, which contributed to the fabrication of Tiger Woods as a national crisis resolving the new face of America. We concentrate on a period defined by his joining the PGA Tour and his winning the U.S. Masters in April 1997. We contend that the commercialized multicultural masculinity advanced through and around Woods is the latest in America's imagined realization of its ideals, agency, equality, responsibility, and freedom, and its imagined transformed sense of national self. America has become the world that came to it. Indeed, we argue that the representation of national ideals through the global multiculturalism inscribed on Woods tacitly extends optimistic ways of thinking about the nation, the post-Cold War resurgence of American nationalism, which are constitutive of racism directed at America's non-white populations in general and the African American population in particular. The multicultural future present embodied by Tiger Woods is deeply implicated in expressions related to America's declared color blindness and white male as victim fantasies. Nike's national moment in the making. According to the origin stories which ostensibly document Woods' rise to national prominence, the American public has long recognized Tiger Woods' exceptionalism. Numerous video clips of the child Tiger's accomplishments are sutured together and recirculated to provide evidence of an America collectively anticipating a sporting, cultural, and economic phenomenon in the making. We, the American populace, watch America watching a precocious, in terms of ability, and atypical, in terms of racial difference, child golfer drawing the attention of the human interest popular media. Clips featuring the child Tiger from television programs such as The Mike Douglas Show, That's Incredible, and Ion LA are recast in ways that position each as a snapshot in the National Family album. Images of a playful freedom embodied by the young Woods are accompanied by clips of a comically impressed Bob Hope, James Stewart, and Mike Douglas. Such images evoke sentimental feelings as they suggest that we have caught a glimpse of the national record of America's white patriarchs previewing and approving the figure of the nation's future. National intimacy was encoded and enacted through these recontextualized media clips of the child Woods. Through the trite machinations of the American popular media, Tiger Woods was positioned and confirmed as America's son. Relatedly, Woods's personal achievements were easily translated into national accomplishments. Recollections of his groundbreaking successes on the golf course, most notably winning his first tournament at the age of 8, an unprecedented 3 U.S. Junior National Championships, 3 straight U.S. Amateur tournaments, and appearing in the 1992 Nissan Los Angeles Open as a high school sophomore, corroborate the fantasy of a conflict-free and colorblind America. Stirred by the aftermath of his record-breaking third consecutive victory at the U.S. Amateur Championship and media speculation over his decision to leave the amateur ranks during August of 1996, Woods's popular presence reached a new intensity. Indeed, Woods's immediate future became a focal point of media, and therefore, national attention. His announced decision to enter the PGA Tour was greeted with much enthusiasm by Tim Finchem, the PGA Tour commissioner. Finchem, speaking on ABC's Nightline, defined the characteristics that made Woods a welcome addition into the professional fold. "I just think that there are 3 major elements to Tiger Woods. One is the level of his competitive skills he has demonstrated time and time again. Secondly, he is from a multiracial ethnic background which makes him unique. And, third is, he has exhibited the poise, and the integrity, and the image, of the kind of players who have performed well on the PGA Tour. And that is the package, and it's a very marketable package." Finchem's very marketable package was taken up, in much the same vein, by the expectant titans of the American sport industry. Mark McCormack's International Management Group, IMG, had so aggressively courted the 15-year-old Woods that they offered his father, Earl Woods, a paid position as talent scout for the American Junior Golf Association, whose tournaments his son was then dominating. Upon turning professional, Woods officially signed with IMG. He also signed a $40 million, 5-year sponsorship deal with Nike, which expected that Woods's racial difference and prodigious talent would revolutionize the public's relation to golf. That is, Nike anticipated that Woods, as a multi-market endorser, would resuscitate their stagnant golf division and, in so doing, significantly bolster the company's overall profits. The success of America's latest revolution, orchestrated around Woods's body and style, would be measured in terms of the diversification and expansion of the market for golf-related products and services both within the United States and abroad. On Wednesday, August 28, 1996, 2 days after Tiger turned professional and on the eve of the Greater Milwaukee Open, Woods held his first press conference as a PGA Tour player. At the microphone, a seemingly sheepish Woods intoned, "I guess, hello world." The familiar global address simultaneously insinuated the decline of national boundaries and trumpeted the significance of Nike's latest worldly American citizen. The faux spontaneity of this carefully scripted soundbite was made evident when, the next day, Nike launched a print and television advertising campaign featuring Woods, entitled Hello World. Despite a chain of events intimating Nike's swift and creative response to a national moment in the making, the national moment in the making was, no doubt, an example of the sort of strategic marketing that placed Nike at the vanguard of contemporary promotional culture. The Hello World television campaign introduced Woods, by interspersing and overlaying the following text between and upon images of his early golfing exploits and recent successes at U.S. Amateur Championships. Hello World. I shot in the 70s when I was 8. I shot in the 60s when I was 12. I won the U.S. Junior Amateur when I was 15. Hello World. I played in the Nissan Open when I was 16. Hello World. I won the U.S. Amateur when I was 18. I played in the Masters when I was 19. I am the only man to win 3 consecutive U.S. Amateur titles. Hello World. There are still courses in the U.S. I am not allowed to play because of the color of my skin. Hello World. I've heard I am not ready for you. Are you ready for me? Woods' recitation was accompanied by an emotive musical score, whose pseudo-African tones and timbre added to the dramatic, and the familiarly exotic, content of the visual narrative. As Nike's Hello World advertisement reinforced a familiar aesthetic, it seemingly presented a challenge to America by disrupting and violating America's unwritten racist, no-national critique, particularly in terms of racism or sexism, code. By highlighting Woods's energy, skill, and earned successes, and then deliberately confronting America with a racial dilemma, America's ideals of colorblindness and proper citizenship were, at least apparently, frankly violated and questioned. Moreover, while previous annotations to the burgeoning Woods phenomenon exploited his difference in ways that maintained a non-threatening ambiguity concerning his precise racial identity, the Hello World campaign flouted such American racial propriety by determining his African-Americanness. According to Henry Yu, a professor of history and Asian American studies at UCLA, the Hello World campaign was evidence of Nike's attempt to African-Americanize Woods. To Nike, at least at this juncture, he was African-American. Race carding and white victim masculinity. The abundance of popular counters to the Hello World campaign intimate the force accrued by America's colorblind credo and codification of citizenship, the suppression of the specter of racial politics, over the last 2 decades. Reactionary critiques habitually invoked the rhetoric of the race card, which had been exceptionally promoted and legitimated through the media's coverage of the O.J. Simpson trial. As one critic neatly summarized the accusation, in Tiger's case, the race card was quickly slapped on the table, dealt face up and from the bottom of the commercial deck. The race card is a primary and explicit expression of the regulatory logic that governs discourses about race in the United States. As an accusatory category, it implies that the introduction of racial divisions is inappropriate and unfair. Moreover, it implies that consciousness of race is itself an obstacle to racial equality. Drawing attention to restrictions based on the color of Woods' skin violates, according to anti-affirmative action logic, America's unquestioned obedience to the doctrines of individualism and meritocracy. At least from one available point of view, then, Hello World relies on the strategy of race carding. From this point of view, it is an expression of the imagined victimization of white males. Other criticisms of the campaign are also symptomatic of this barely submerged anxious white masculinity. That Woods' destiny was not shaped by his talent alone was a popular, repeated, and revealing response. It is funny how it works. Part of Woods' appeal is his race. If he were just another blonde-haired, blue-eyed golfer, he wouldn't be this overnight marketing phenomenon. He would be just another blonde-haired, blue-eyed golfer struggling to finish in the top 125 in earnings to gain exempt status on the PGA Tour. In his comments about Nike's promotional strategy, noted sports journalist John Feinstein expressed familiar anti-affirmative action rhetoric as he named race as the key dimension of his extraordinary marketability. For Feinstein, Woods was the great black hope for golf. The fact that Nike is marketing him as a black player, not just as a talented player, but as a black player, tells you that all this money that's being thrown in his direction has as much to do with the color of his skin and his ability to be a role model as it does with his golf. While such expressions of resentment are entangled in contemporary white male identity, blame was not directed at Woods. Instead, racial consciousness was seen to be an outgrowth of Nike's opportunistic politics. For example, Spousta names Nike, not Woods, as the player of the race card. If any of that made you feel uncomfortable, don't squirm too much. Truth is, Woods never portrayed himself as our social conscious until Nike pushed him across that line. But it's the message that makes you wins, not the messenger, and we should embrace and celebrate Tiger as a person and a player. Watching him develop into a champion should be a great adventure for fans of any color. And, in one of the most revealing moments of displacement, Advertising Age's Rance Crane admonished Nike for Woods' militant, almost angry stance. The theme of Nike's mismanagement of Woods' identity is a rhetorical mechanism that sidesteps critical reflection on national racial politics. In addition, it makes Woods a casualty of Nike, and in so doing, disavows the possibility of Woods' political assertiveness. This proclamation of political lack locates the virtue of his personal acts through terms that designate Woods as apolitical. By extension, his apolitical, even pre-political classification is crucial to his capacity to signify personal and national goodness. As Woods is articulated as innocent, pure, virtuous, and victimized, the possibility for multiple consumer desires and identifications are created and mobilized. The ad agency argues that Woods approved the ad. Woods, 20, might be mature beyond his years, but he still is 20 and perhaps somewhat naive in the ways of the world. Woods has never been inclined to use his influence as a bully pulpit on the issue of race and golf. He disdains the notion that he is the great black hope. He has never expressed a desire to be the best black golfer in history, only the best golfer in history. The world not only is at Woods' feet, it is on his side. Why would Nike see fit to embroil him in a senseless, needless controversy that threatens to turn some against him, from day one of his career? In response, Nike reclaimed the critics' charges and announced that it had intentionally fashioned a highly charged advertisement. Jim Small, Nike's director of public relations, embraced the controversy by depicting the conflict as indicative of Nike's success. The very fact that it made people so uncomfortable shows it did what it was intended to. We hit the nail on the head. But the popular investment in Woods, despite the controversy surrounding the advertisement, suggests that the Hello World campaign did not significantly discomfort national consumers. Instead, Nike and Tiger Woods were united in the pursuit of another of America's favorite pastimes, the hailing of American consumers through, by paraphrasing Cornel West, what might be called pragmatic symbols, symbols through which America tells stories about itself. Although the Hello World campaign identified and named racism, it did so through the familiar and acceptable terms of social criticism. Capitalizing on narratives already in place, and particularly narratives that America loves to consume through sport, Woods' entry into professional golf was cast as an event of national magnitude. Consumer identification was invited and secured by cloaking Woods in a swathe of overtly patriotic sentiment. He was vaunted as an emblem of racial progress, a righter of wrongs a la foundational figures such as Jackie Robinson and Arthur Ashe. Indeed, the extraordinary proliferation of allusions to Jackie Robinson surrounding Tiger underscore the sort of pleasures promised to American consumers. Thus, the Hello World campaign announced itself as America's quintessential tantalizing tale of racial progress, one that combined race, sport, masculinity, national healing, and proper citizenship. As Woods and Nike crossed the final sporting frontier, a remote sector of a frontier typically conflated with the American way of life and the American dream, consumers, hailed as compassionate, informed citizens, were invited to recollect mediated national ethical moments of the past and to participate in a national familial ethical moment of the present. In this way, Tiger Woods became the latest version of a commercialized raced masculinity implicated in political backlash while certifying national transformation, progress, and equality. One commentator pointedly captured the conservative "some of my best friends" orientation of Tiger Woods' enthusiastic appropriation by the hearts and minds of the American establishment, the core constituency of golf, those members only who have managed to make the country club, after the church, the most segregated institution in America, think Tiger will get people off their backs. How can you call golf racist now, you liberal jogger? Just look who we invited to tea. Woods, like Colin Powell, Michael Jordan, and Oprah Winfrey, was thus used by the populist defenders of core American values and ideologies, i.e., those cultural producers operating within the ratings-driven media and poll-driven centrist politics, as self-evident proof of the existence of a colorblind meritocracy. So, in a time of increasing racial polarization along social and economic lines, Tiger Woods emerged as a popular icon from whom the American populace could derive a sense of intimacy, pride, and reassurance. To the extent that Woods was perceived to be an activist, it was clearly a nationally sanctioned activism linked to media, family, and consumption. In this case, a familiar dramatic and heroic narrative, in and through which consumers could participate, was fabricated against the backdrop of an exceptional experience. In a national context ostensibly already devoid of racism, Woods and Nike had identified a local and temporary situation of racial discrimination in the private and protected elite space of golf. Moreover, it's already given an expeditious resolution to make golf the place of the people. All people, regardless of race or sex, now seemingly had the right to participate in the multiple consumption practices surrounding golf, would be mediated live. Under the guise of public debate and intervention, America's self-congratulatory mood was affirmed. Rather than encouraging critical thought about contemporary national politics and the complexity of racism, the Hello World campaign relied on and reproduced a mediated patriotism. Ironically, racial discrimination, formulated as a holdover from another time, was used to reauthorize the nation's view of itself as beyond race. America's post-historical everyman. During the fall of 1996, the media coverage of Tiger Woods reached extraordinary proportions following his victories at the 1996 Las Vegas Invitational and 1996 Walt Disney World/Oldsmobile Classic tournaments. As much as they were interested in his exploits on the golf course, the popular media were obsessively concerned with documenting, and thereby advancing, the Tiger Mania seemingly sweeping the nation. Paradoxically, Tiger Mania was represented through the dramatically increased viewing and attendance figures for tournaments and blanket media coverage incited by the popular media. Nike, in a moment symptomatic of the expansion of Woods' celebrity citizenship, debuted their second Tiger Woods commercial. Nike's Tiger Woods MK2 was revealed to an expectant primetime American public during coverage of IMG's made-for-TV Skins game, which ran on the ABC network over the Thanksgiving Day 1996 weekend. Nike undermined any sparks from the Hello World backlash as it capitalized on Woods' accruing cultural capital as the unequivocal embodiment of America's future multicultural citizenry. Capitulating to dominant cultural norms and values in a more banal, and therefore even more powerful, way, Nike contributed to the fabrication of Woods as the latest version of the new face of America. Woods' apparently re-engineered racial image was facilitated via a television commercial entitled "I Am Tiger Woods." The 60-second commercial's visual, a mixture of black and white and color images with still, slow, and full-motion footage, was accompanied by a musical soundtrack incorporating an understated mix of drum beats and chorus harmonies. The result was a somewhat pious celebration of that which Tiger Woods had come to represent. This process of deification centered on a cast of racially diverse and geographically dispersed children, on golf courses and distinctly urban settings, who collectively embodied Nike's vision of Tiger Woods' essential heterogeneity. Moreover, they signified, by inference, the future American populace. Borrowing the "I am" strategy previously adopted in both Stanley Kubrick's Spartacus and more recently Spike Lee's Malcolm X, each strategic child representative proclaimed, with varying degrees of solemnity, "I am Tiger Woods." The golfing Woods is periodically glimpsed as young males and females possessing characteristics stereotypically associated with African Americans, Asian Americans, or European Americans offer invocations of "I am Tiger Woods." The commercial ends with slow-motion footage of Woods hitting a drive down the center of a tree-lined fairway. As he reaches the apex of his follow-through, "I am Tiger Woods" in white text appears in the bottom center of the frame, followed by Nike's international national sign, the obligatory swoosh. Less than 3 months earlier, the Hello World campaign had enabled, despite its immediate displacement, the possibility of reading Woods as an outspoken racial insurgent. Now, Woods was clearly re-articulated into a multicultural figure who, like his young imitators, was framed as the pre-political and post-historical embodied manifestation of contemporary racial politics. Moreover, a significant change is claimed for the golf world. Not only have we witnessed an immediate change in personnel but also golf's future will include a significantly different cast of characters. Indeed, through what you depicts as a shift away from Nike's African-Americanized representation, Woods, you argues, was conclusively cast as a multicultural godsend to the sport of golf. Under the sign of multiculturalism and in America's golfing future, everyone will be included. It was the emotive appeal of this post-historical multiculturalism that situated Oprah Winfrey's anointing of Woods as America's son. Oprah Winfrey, can we get this straight? What do you call yourself? Do you call yourself African American? I know you are. Your father's half black, quarter Chinese, quarter American Indian, your mother's half Thai, quarter Chinese, and quarter white. So you are, that's why you were America's son. Tiger Woods, yes. Oprah Winfrey, you are America's son. With Oprah's designation and the ascending understanding of Woods and the nation as multicultural hybrids in the background, Woods lends authenticity to the imaginary moment by listing his multicultural qualifications. Conjuring up America's fantasy continuum, marked by a past in which the world had come to America and a present in which America had become the world, Woods locates himself. Tiger Woods, yeah. I guess 2 things. Is that I guess now that I'm on the Ryder Cup team, which, we get to go over and play in Europe in September, that I won't be representing the United States, I'll be representing the United Nations. Which is a little different. A little funny thing is, growing up, I came up with this name. I'm a Cablinasian, CA, Caucasian, BL, Black, Indian, Asian, Cablinasian. Oprah Winfrey, that's what you call yourself? Tiger Woods, yeah. Woods, denying any particular allegiance, appeals to a mythic globalization and declares himself a citizen of the world. While he and the apparently complex identity he simply claims appear to work against, both are very much part of, the discourse of nationalism. Not only does his refined multiracial category suggest that identity is a factual representation of genetic and cultural heritage, but it, paradoxically, reinforces the notion of the abstract person, detached from time and place, and imagines identity as voluntary, like the identity implanted in the multicultural new face of America. This is not to say that Woods is not implicated in globalization. Indeed, Woods is part of the international community, he is embedded in multiple connections to multiple places. However, those connections are economic and political, not the innocent invention of a child growing up. National interests are naturalized through mechanisms that imagine larger global loyalties and current and familiar racial categories obsolete. Like the feminine cultural hybrids manufactured by time, Mirabella, and Betty Crocker, Woods seemingly provides morally sufficient answers to the cultural, economic, and political crises afflicting the contemporary United States and its position in global capitalism. Affirmative Culture in 1990s America. In this chapter, we have introduced the salient and remarkable assertions about identity, community, and culture made in the name of America through Tiger Woods. Indeed, Woods signifies a post-national order, suggests a transnational coalition of sorts, and is imagined as a global national antidote. In the United States, a global organic community, an organic community that links the local, national, and global, is visualized through thoroughly nationalist terms. Most distinctively, at the level of nation, Woods is coded as a multicultural sign of color blindness. Proclamations of the nation's venture to be colorblind, as Judith Butler explains, is still to be related to race and emotive blindness. In other words, race does not fall away from view, it becomes produced as the absent object that structures permissible discourse. Keeping the productive dimensions of discursive constraints in mind, we conclude by underscoring the contradictory effects of the national multicultural myth advertised through Woods. We review how disavowals of racism, apparently principled claims of inclusivity, and declarations of colorblindness organize the regulatory discourses about race and nation, as they are encoded and enacted around a national event called Tiger Mania. America's responses to Nike's Hello World campaign, as we have argued, rely on and reactivate the logic guiding opponents of racial consciousness and affirmative action. Anti-affirmative action sentiment, particularly as it has become entwined with demands for color blindness, was most recently reinvigorated during the mid-1990s as the media focused national attention on the Board of Regents of the University of California. The UC Regents were among the first to repeal their affirmative action program. Despite the perceptible distance, geographically and conceptually, between public affirmative action debates and America's celebration of Woods's intelligibility is deeply embedded in the commonplace values expressed in and through opposition to affirmative action. Thus, Woods is a crucial transfer point in the network of resistance to affirmative action. These dynamics are illustrated in the ambivalent representations of Woods as he is repeatedly designated as a racial sign of America's radical racial transformation. As the Hello World campaign identified racism as a contemporary problem, the issue of racism was quickly translated into a problem of race consciousness. Evaluated through the restrictions on post-civil rights discourse, the problem was redefined in terms of how the category was introduced. By associating Woods with a racial category, Nike is deemed an agent of victimization. According to neoliberal and conservative post-civil rights logic, Woods is the victim of an ill-conceived marketing strategy that denies him his deserved transcendent position. Moreover, a logic of reverse discrimination is expressed in another of the popular responses to Woods. It is funny how it works. Part of Woods' appeal is his race. If he were just another blonde-haired, blue-eyed golfer, he would be just another blonde-haired, blue-eyed golfer struggling. Such a reactive comment is symptomatic of the historical moment in which white men claim to be unfairly burdened by history. In particular, white male athletes are introduced as the new class of victims who suffer because race, rather than merit and accomplishment, determines value and marketability. Racial preference, presumed to be and presented as a violation of America's moral model, the transcendent figure who bears no marks of history as the effect of the moral model, is advanced as a fundamental issue. The national moment in the making narrative, exemplified by the invitation to consumers to participate by watching live as Woods breaks through what is presumably the final racial barrier, seemingly departs from and intervenes in anti-affirmative action sentiments. Yet, both anti-affirmative action arguments and the national moment in the making narrative draw on the same celebrated morals that are the core of national culture. The isolation technique, which reduces racial discrimination in terms of time and space, is crucial to the event's national consumer appeal. Moreover, the already in-place hero, a hero encoded as an antidote to an outdated race discrimination that can be fathomed only because it exists in the remote and elite Gulf world, enhances its marketability. National intimacy is further secured as America imagines itself anticipating this hero's arrival for more than a decade. Thus, the national moment in the making that consumers experience is not simply a celebration of Tiger's personal accomplishments but of America's accomplished abolition of Gulf's elitism. Both the technique of isolation and the mediation of the event establish a national intimacy that allows consumer citizens to take part in this intimate national event. Relatedly, Tiger is codified through terms that deny and inscribe, in ways that are specifically anti-African American, racialized othering. Indeed, the precise terms of opposition through which Tiger is interpreted as a breath of fresh air are telling. The phrase easily recalls the now familiar demonizing representations of generations of African American NBA players whose diverse infractions are routinely translated into a criminalized contempt for authority. And, more often than not, those infractions are taken up as a sign of a collective irresponsible sexuality and consumption. Woods, in this case, is offered as a carefully hued multiracial response to what is widely considered to be the primary source of the dissolution of the familial and, by extension, the national core culture, the regularly pathologized African American population. Given the prominence of reproduction and family in the contemporary national politics of intimacy, the declaration of Woods as America's new son is telling. Again, in a historical moment in which African American athletes are routinely characterized as engaging in non-familial sexual relations, Woods is represented as the embodiment of normal, immigrant familial America. Like the other simulated multicultural figures discussed by Berlant, Woods's very existence sanctions the disinvestment in many contexts of African American life in the present tense and points to a new citizenship form that will ensure the political future of the core national culture. Woods, America's multicultural son, is a seductive element in a national image archive figured on the paradoxical claims about the nation. While African American basketball players are regularly charged with violating national core values, Woods has become revered for his cultural heritage and cultural literacy. Aware that earlier promotional incarnations of Tiger Woods' persona had created media and popular interest but not the desired level of commodity consumption, Nike sought to appeal to the classic golfer, i.e., middle class and white, whose high levels of disposable income bolstered the golf economy. So, Nike's Tiger Woods strategizing sought to evoke a brand image that was more Armani than Gap. This involved the use of more conservative designs and materials for the Tiger Woods apparel collection and, more crucially, it signaled a distinct change in the way Woods was represented within Nike advertising campaigns. This shift is exemplified in the deeply reverential "I Am Lucky" Nike advertising campaign which followed the "I Am Tiger Woods" commercial. Hogan, Ben Hogan, knows, Snead, Sam Snead, knows, Jack Nicklaus, knows. I am lucky. Everything I have I owe to golf, and for that I am lucky. This appeal to Woods' position among the litany of golfing greats was indicative of the revamping of the Woods brand in that it highlighted and mobilized another dimension of contemporary cultural dynamics and larger political concerns in America. Its rhetoric, a conservative appeal to tradition, draws a connection between Woods and those who came before him, thus furnishing Woods with a reassuring sporting and national cultural lineage. Unlike popular reactions to rank-and-file NBA players, Woods was thus codified as a multicultural agent who restores virtue to, as he is designated, an extension of, America's sporting tradition. Woods' iconic national sporting pedigree was subsequently underscored by his superlative displays during the 1999 and 2000 PGA seasons. In 1999 Woods won 11 events, including the US PGA Championship, his second major title, to finish at the top of golf's world rankings and the PGA money list. Even these stellar achievements were surpassed in the 2000 season when Woods won the US Open, the British Open, and the US PGA Championship, 3 of golf's 4 major championships, and a total of 9 PGA Tour events. In the wake of his domination of golf, Woods, everybody's favorite multicultural American, has been rendered a cultural phenomenon, distinguished by his ability to stimulate popular interest, as measured by either the number of spectators at events or television audience ratings figures, rather than incite critical reflection. So this potentially progressive cultural figure has effectively been neutered by the forces of corporate capitalism, such that presently most of us don't need him to be a savior or a hero or a role model. We simply want the spectacle: Tiger gliding down the fairway, Tiger hitting rainmaker drives, Tiger pummeling his opponents and then putting his arm around them, Tiger hugging his mom. If he turns and winks back at us every once in a while, that will be enough. The popular spectacle that Tiger Woods has become was evidently enough for Nike when, in September 2000, they signed him to a new 5-year endorsement contract worth $100 million. Nike effectively paid this exorbitant sum in order to augment their somewhat faltering brand identity through a continued association with a suitably benign, yet engaging, face of America's future citizenry that is Tiger Woods. In the end, this national multicultural icon's agency is figured through a squeaky clean image, his enormous smile, and his ability, in terms of cultural work, to reproduce the permissible discourse of nation and race. America's Tiger Mania is, finally, a celebration of cultural literacy, of a national myth, projected onto and relayed through Woods, that reinvigorates, rather than contests, white cultural prestige. Threats of cultural miscegenation, interference with the myth's facile reproduction, are displaced onto racial identities now declared outdated. Thus, the narrative of continuity, Woods' place within the genealogy of white male golfers and his location in the lineage of black athletes, works to enhance what it means to be an American in a global moment, which translates, in the last instance, into augmenting white culture. It is in this sense that Woods is America's new model entrepreneur and citizen. That Woods is America's new model entrepreneur and citizen. That Woods is America's new model entrepreneur and citizen. That Woods is America's new model entrepreneur and citizen. That Woods is America's new model entrepreneur and